morning. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. So, today I am going to talk about man's laws versus God's laws, or God's laws versus man's laws, depending on your perspective, how you want to see it, which one you think is more important. It's completely up to you. So, God's laws versus man's laws. First and foremost, God's laws were in place before any man was able to even think of a law. And God's laws are absolute and they cannot change. They do not change. They cannot change because God designed it not to change. The universe, the structure of the universe, the framework of the universe are governed by laws that cannot change. If they change, it's almost like if God changes the laws, God moves the bar. And if God moves the bar, then that's not fair. So God is about fairness. God is about equality. And in order to keep moving higher and higher and higher, God's laws have to remain the same, so we all have the opportunity to reach certain points in our life that, what is going on here? Certain points that allow us to keep progressing. For those, the laws that were in place when Adam and Eve were put on this planet are the same laws that are available today. And the same laws are going to be available for all other souls who come after us. So every soul that's incarnating in this moment will have the same opportunity that every other man and woman have had, every other soul has had previously. So that's that. So God is not wavering on that. Now, man's laws. Man's laws come, they go. They go through a process where people have to decide if it's something that is beneficial or non-beneficial. But understand that anytime there's any debate or discussion, it's because there's uncertainty. And this is the problem. This is the problem with man's laws. They are all based in uncertainty. And the reason why that is because man's laws are designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to control. To control people to do this or to control people to do that. To control people into living a certain way or to control people into not living a certain way. That's what the laws are designed for man, because they don't know the answer to it. So they can force behavioral change, because that's all man's laws are, behavioral change. They're all based on behavioral change, whereas God's laws are based on soul change. They respond to the soul. They don't respond to behavior. They respond to the intent of the soul. They respond to the actions that are made due to the soul, by the soul. Everything, all of God's laws respond to the human soul. And the experience that we get is the experience that we get in our physical in our physical experience. But man's laws, you can change them. They don't always apply. Man decides when they are applied. When you go to a courtroom, a judge can have one ruling based on its laws. They can do some kind of retrial and they go to, or appeal it and they go to a different judge, and that judge will or can have a completely different ruling based on the same law. And this is the problem. Man's laws are not absolute, and they are made from a place of uncertainty, which is why they can never be applied the same across the board. And they're unloving. So God's laws are loving because the intent of God's laws are to correct the soul, whereas man's laws are present to punish the soul. If you don't do this, I'm going to punish you. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to fine you. I'm going to do all these things that hurt so you won't do it again. but at the same time, they're benefiting from it. Understand, those who create the laws benefit from the laws. Does that? I hope that makes sense. So let's say you're speeding, and man's laws say don't speed. You have to pay a fine. Guess who gets that fine? The government. The government that enforces the law and creates the law. Those are the people who are winning here. There's no rehabilitation involved. It is only when God's laws are applied. So let's say someone was speeding. All right? Let's say someone was speeding, they got a ticket, and they were fined. And they realized, maybe through the whole process, that what they were doing was jeopardizing not only their lives or their children's lives or strangers' lives, other motorists. Let's just keep there, where they realized that they were doing something that was potentially harming or putting other people in harm's way, jeopardizing their lives. So what would happen is they would feel this. Now, this is part of God's laws. It's not, if there's internal change within the soul, it's not really man's laws. It's a recognizing of God's laws. It's recognizing of the value, of the worth and value of the soul, of other people's lives. That is what's going on. This is why it's so important to understand God's laws, because if you understand God's laws and you allow yourself to be governed by God's laws, 9 times out of 10, you won't have to deal with any man's laws. So if you feel that you're in a situation, say there's a whole bunch of cars and you're bobbing and weaving in and out of traffic, you're jeopardizing your life and the lives of others. So what does that mean? It means that you don't care about God's children, including yourself. This is why people do the things that they do, because they're not aware of God's laws. They're not aware of the value and the worth of God's creation. They're not aware of it. So therefore, it's not even a part of their thought process. It's not a concern. So all they're worried about is, I don't want to get a ticket. So they're looking in the rearview mirror. Oh, I don't want to get a ticket. I don't want to get a ticket, but I want to keep speeding. Never mind the lives of people on the road. So this is the difference. When you have God's laws and you live by God's laws, you won't ever have to worry about man's laws. And the universe will protect you from man's laws being imposed upon you. So, for instance, let's say there's an open road. And, there's an open road and you feel free to speed and you're speeding. You won't get a ticket for that. However, if you have degradation within your soul, you'll get that ticket. And you'll look, and you'll not only will you look around, you will say, there's nobody on the road, I'm not endangering anybody, but you don't understand that you're endangering yourself. This is what I'm saying. Like, God's laws, you have to understand God's gifts, God's creation, God's laws. And if you understand them and live by them, and the things, not just live by them, but understand them. Understand them. You can do extraordinary things. You can do very risky things and not have any consequences. And that would be solely based on your soul condition. If there's no degradation in your soul to call for a law of attraction event to cause pain or suffering, it won't happen. But this is why people can do the same thing. Some get caught and some don't. It's based upon their law of attraction. It's not it's not by chance. It wasn't like someone was lucky. It's their law of attraction doesn't call for that. Your law of attraction calls for that. This is why it's not good to follow other people, because most people don't know what's in their soul. They don't know what dwells. I was behind this truck the other day, if not yesterday. Everything that, all of our experiences are dependent upon our soul condition. So, and this is why it's important to understand the law of attraction. The laws of the universe and how they are applied. Cause and effect, cause and effect. What's in your soul to cause the effect? The effect being the law of attraction. What is the effect? Cause and effect. Most people don't know the cause because they don't know what's within their soul. They don't even know what the soul is. People use it interchangeably. Spirit and soul, my spirit, my being, my soul, my spirit, my being. They use these things interchangeably and they're different. The soul is who you are. It's God's creation. The pinnacle of God's creation is the soul. That is who you are. And you are experiencing yourself and expressing yourself via the spirit body and the physical body. You have two bodies that the Creator has given you. One can be easily damaged and made to not operate, which is the physical body, if it suffers too much trauma. Whereas the spirit body can experience a great deal of trauma and not be destroyed. And you don't lose your spirit body until you are ready to come together with your other half of your soul, which is your soulmate, literally the other half of you. So God's laws, the way, even that's part of God's system. The law says if a certain amount of trauma is impacted, if a certain amount of trauma is imposed upon the physical body. But understand this as well. This is also part of God's law. If the soul is in pristine condition, something can happen to the body and it will be able to sustain it, no problem. However, if the soul condition is weakened, depending upon the trauma, the body will not be able to survive that. It cannot sustain. It's like that physical body cannot sustain the life force of the soul. It just can't do that anymore. And at the same time, because everything is a two-way street, the soul doesn't have enough energy, does not have enough love to sustain the physical body. It goes both ways. So, when it comes to God's laws, they are absolute. They sustain all things. And they're all designed to help you realize your potential, your greatest potential. That is always going to be beyond what you can fathom. There are spirits who are in the 30 plus dimension, and they never knew what was going to be next every time they moved up to another dimension. We are able to hear it, to hear about it. We're able to hear from spirits who experience certain things, but even at that, there's a law that says someone in the 20th dimension or sphere can talk about their experience and it will not be understood by someone in the first dimension. It will only be understood from the perspective of the person in the first dimension. So an example of that is someone who is in college, who's in a graduate program, can talk to a fifth grader about statistics or calculus, physics, and they won't understand. And you would have to break it down, but as you break something down, you're always leaving something out. So a spirit in the 20th dimension or 20th sphere will have to leave something out in order for the person they're explaining it to understand. That's the law. The law is you cannot fully grasp something that is higher than the condition you are in. You cannot fully experience and understand something that is greater than your current condition. Same thing with the physical on this planet. Poor people cannot experience that which wealthy people experience. Their soul condition doesn't allow it. Now, for some, the soul condition is like, if it's a desire of yours, you'll be able to experience it, but it won't be able to be sustained. And God allows for this because God wants all souls to strive for something more and better and higher. Whatever it is, God wants you to explore. God wants you to expand. God wants you to experience that which is greater than what you currently are experiencing. That's the whole point of life, is to experience more. More joy, more happiness, more positive experiences. That's what the Creator desires for us. But understand, it's only a desire. It's only a desire. And once you choose, and once you make a choice that this is what you desire, the Creator will make it possible for you to experience just for a moment, just so you get a taste for it. A taste of variety of experiences, variety of life, a variety of joy, a variety of pleasure, so that you can open yourself up to more. But it has to be a desire. But if you're completely shut down, there are some people who believe they will never. Like, there are people in the hood, or in the, what do you call them, the boroughs. There are people who live in very poor conditions, and they have accepted that this is life, and they believe that they can't have anything more because of whatever reason. It could be because of their ethnicity. It could be because they're a girl. It could be because they don't see anyone like them who is successful, or they believe that they're not worthy of it. That's a huge one. Most people believe they can't have something because of their lack of worth, and so they feel they don't have any value. There's no value in who they are. So this just means that they don't understand God's creation. They don't have faith in the truth, and possibly don't even know what the truth is. We hear it. Like, I think everybody has heard just about that we are the pinnacle of the Creator's creation, but not all believe that. Not all people really hold that on a soul level. And honestly, I don't think there's anybody on the planet, well, except for a few, who actually, who fully understands this 100%. I'll just say that. We may recognize it, we may realize it, but we don't know how that is. Like, we may say, yes, we're the pinnacle of God's creation because we hear it, but do we actually know that as a truth on a soul level? Because if it's held as a truth on a soul level, then we would live from that place, and people aren't living from that place. So, and this is one of the reasons man's laws are in place. Because, see, man's laws were not created for equality. It wasn't created for all people to benefit from it. It was created to support and sustain the well-to-do, the wealthy, those who had power. So, because most laws say, hey, you can't do that. Like, they prevent, like, for instance, stealing. Stealing is a law. You can't take something that isn't yours. Now, that is a God's law. You don't take anything like that. But the reason why it's being imposed or enforced on the planet as man's law is because they're protecting the value of those who have. So if those who have put things out and people were allowed to take them, then the people who are wealthy wouldn't be wealthy. So they would lose money. So how would they be able to sustain their wealth? But understand that this law is meant to maintain a status quo. This is what I'm saying. Man's laws may look like and be similar to God's laws, but the reasoning behind it, the intent behind it, is completely different. This is why it's important to only live by God's laws. If, like I said, if you live by God's laws, you won't have to worry about man's laws. So, let's say you're married. You want to commit adultery. You want to do something unloving like that. Okay, you do that. Now you're going to have to, not only are you going to be held accountable to God's laws, or by God's laws, but you will also now have to experience man's laws. So now you got to go to divorce court. And this is where the law of attraction, of God's laws, are in place. You're going to lose possibly everything, or a big chunk of it anyway. And now you're going to be devastated because you chose to do something unloving. and this is what I'm saying. If you choose not to do unloving things and abide by God's laws, you won't have to worry about being punished by man's laws. It's not fair that someone work and the other person not have to work and they get everything plus this alimony thing where you have to work, they don't get to work, and as long as they don't remarry, you have to support them forever. That's not fair. At what point does that soul become independent and self-sufficient? You know? And all along it's done to punish the person who cheated. Again, it's man trying to punish man. That's what man's laws are used for. God's laws cannot be used to punish because God is the only one enforcing them, and God has only the loving intent behind the enforcement of each law. So if you know this, like for instance, like people have done things to me, and there's many times I could have retaliated, and I could have used the rules and the laws and the policies in order to punish someone. I could have went to human resources and do all these different things in order to punish. But I knew I was angry because of the things that were happening, so I had to check myself. It's good to be angry. Well, let me just say this. Let me put this correctly. It's okay to be angry at the situation, but it's not okay to be angry at someone, because when you're angry at someone, you want to project at the other person. And when you project anger at the other person, you want to hurt the other person. You want the person to suffer just as you are suffering. And if you take on this role of judge and juror, you're going to pay for that. There is a law that says you cannot harm another soul. So if you're doing something to harm another soul, you're going to pay for that. But if you're coming from a place where you're not meaning to harm that person, but there's something that's due you, it's okay to go forward with the laws, because then the universe would be guiding these laws to happen against that person. See, God, even though man's laws exist and they're unloving, God is able to use these laws in order to enforce its karma, if you will, or the soul's karma. Because how else will a person receive their karma if not interacting with things and having painful consequences? There has to be painful consequences, but like I said, the reason behind the consequences is what's important. If the reason is loving, if the reason is to help the soul correct itself, it's okay. But if it's to punish, if it's to cause harm, pain, just for the sake of causing pain, it's not okay. This is why it's okay for God to use man's laws in order to enforce corrective measure. But it's not okay when man does it from an unloving place. And sometimes the way it happens, you may not intend for certain things to happen a certain way, but it happens anyway. It's out of your control. You know, you may say, hey, you know what? I'm going to, someone may not pay you the money that they owe you. And this is your money and the person is being unloving about it. You can take the person to court just for the sole purpose of getting what's yours. Now understand, at the same time, there is a karmic lesson in there for you too, because something is being withheld from you. A lot of people don't see this. They think, oh, well, you're being the asshole. You're being the dick about it. You're being the thief. You're being unloving to me because you're holding something from me. But never recognizing that the universe withheld that from you. Use this person to withhold it from you. Put this person in your path who the universe knew was going to be dishonest. The universe knew that this person was going to steal. This person knew the universe knew this person's situation. They knew this was going to be a possibility. They knew, like the universe knew that this person was going to take from you from the get-go because it was in your soul condition. That's what I'm saying. It's written upon your soul. So the fact that someone kept something from you to begin with is still your law of attraction. So you can't say, hey, you kept money from me, you're the asshole, you're the this, you're the that. You can go to court to get what's yours, but understand there is a lesson in that for you as well. The laws are always in motion. They're always working. And the thing is, if we don't understand the laws, we don't know when they're being imposed. And when we don't know they're being imposed, we ignore them. And when we ignore them, the lessons get harder and much more painful. Harder and much more painful. That's why life gets harder as you go on. The situations get a little bit more unbearable each and every time. And we have to find ways to cope and manage. And every time we cope and manage, we're ignoring the lesson. That's what coping and managing is, ignoring the lesson. So don't ignore the lesson. If something painful happens, try to understand what the lesson is. Really try to sit. And the thing is, the lesson, it's not hard to figure out. It's not something you actually figure out with your mind. It's something you experience from the soul, or in your soul. You experience the pain in your soul. You use your mind to identify what type of pain it is. So, for instance, a child, and this is why it's easier for a child to release the emotional injuries that are within the soul. So if you were to withhold something from a child, the child would immediately cry. Why? Because something's being withheld from it. Something is being withheld from the child. And the child knows that lack is something that is painful. The child, like I said, the child is new and fresh. The child is new and fresh. And so there's a certain awareness, or I should say, there is a lack of confusion that is dwelling within the soul. There's nothing in the mind. This is, the mind is it can confuse you. This is why people try to think themselves out of situations and they make things worse. As the mind focuses on one thing, they don't see the whole of it. The soul can see the whole of it. But the mind, it focuses. It hones in on one area. And as it's fixing that, the other parts are falling apart. You have to see the whole of it. So, as a child that's newly born, it doesn't understand anything. It doesn't understand anything from... I'm sorry. It understands, but it doesn't understand from the place of the mind. It only understands from the place of the soul. It's feeling the lack. It's feeling the absence of something. It's feeling the absence of lack. It's feeling the absence of love. It's experiencing the lack of love. That's what the child is experiencing. And it doesn't need anything in its mind to tell it that. Because it's embedded in the soul. It's ingrained in the soul. The soul has been designed to detect these things. When the mind isn't right, the soul recognizes. I had made a post, I think it's Project Forever Project, I don't know. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, what was I saying? The mind. The mind is as a child, the mind is not bombarded with confusion. It is not until the child starts learning of the unloving ways, of the wrong ways. Ooh, that's clever. That is so clever. Look at them, teamwork. I was like, why is he driving so slow and making that big gap? He made a big gap for his friend. All right now. So, like I said, the mind is as a child isn't contaminated, and it doesn't use the mind to try to figure out things. It's solely based on the feeling. When you take something away, the child feels it. When you step away from the child feels the absence of closeness. The child feels the absence, period. The child feels the void. The child, when a parent is close to their baby, to their infant, the child calms down. The child calms down. It's calm. But as soon as you walk away, it feels the void. Void of what? The void of closeness. The void of love. The child just feels the void. And so it's solely based on feelings. And the soul is doing this. The soul is doing this. Now, it isn't until the child starts growing up and starts using its own its own mind to determine what's going on. Some things are learned behavior, some things it learns on its own. And then there's a cross. There's a merging of the two. So the mind is when the mind has been contaminated, when it's corrupted, and it starts trying to make decisions from that place, that's when all hell breaks loose for that life. Because it's like a computer that has damaged what do they call them damn things? I forget what they call them. There's little bits of information, little squares, I forget what they call them, and where the information is stored, where the data is stored. And if there's any corruption in there, it can't function properly. Certain actions are taken. That's why you start getting errors. It's like, oh, everything was working fine, and then all of a sudden I got this error. Well, that's because there's corruption present. And that's the same thing with the soul, or with the with the soul, but with the mind. If it's corrupted, it can't make the right decision. It keeps making the wrong decision. It keeps creating the same error over and over and over again. And this is why people keep making the same mistakes over and over again, because for so long something has been working, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And this is, there is grace, people, that is placed upon the soul. You're not automatically just damned, you're not automatically just experiencing pain. If you look back on your life, you've done the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and you never had the consequence, or you never had a painful consequence until one time you got one. And you're like, what the hell? I've been doing this all this time. Why am I being punished now, is really how people see it. Why is this happening to me now? Even in the workplace or with family, or I've been doing this for years. Like, for instance, you can do something wrong to someone, you can hurt someone, you can cause someone emotional pain, your spouse, your family member, and they never say anything, because it's giving them an opportunity to say something, and it's giving you an opportunity to realize that you're doing something unloving by watching how the person is responding to your actions. And so God will allow this to happen because God is a teaching God. God is a loving God. So God will allow this to continue to happen. The Creator will allow this to continue to happen. The universe will allow this to continue to happen until there's a point where you're not learning anything and they're not learning anything. You're not learning how to be loving to another person. They're not learning how to be loving to themselves by saying, stop it, I don't like this. And so now the consequence must be imposed. That's it. The consequence must be imposed. For them, it's been imposed the whole time, because if you don't learn how to love yourself, you're going to allow someone to continue abusing you, taking advantage of you. That's what's going to happen. And that's what has happened. So the person who's being abused has been experiencing the consequence, and now the person who's been imposing the unloving behavior upon the other person, or you or whoever, now you got to get yours, because you didn't learn your lesson. You didn't learn your lesson. So, God's laws are they're always in place. They're always in place. And it's a beautiful thing, because a pure soul, a soul that has nothing but love in it, has the best experience possible. The less degradation in your soul, the better your experience. The more degradation in your soul, the worse your experience. The more unpleasant your experience is, and will continue to be that way. It becomes less and less desirable. And this is why people have less and less desire to even live life. Because it's too much. It's like, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do that. And people give up. Because they don't know the reason why that's happening. They don't know that it's the degradation within their soul that's causing their life experience to be such a crappy one. And then they're like, I try. This is why, motivational speakers, they work for some and they don't work for others. They can't work for everybody. They work for some, they don't work for others. Some motivational people or some motivational speakers work for a certain group of people, while other motivational speakers work for other groups of people, and that's because motivational speakers all kind of focus on different things, and different people have different problems. So this is why you can go to 21 motivational speakers, and none of them worked until you got to the 21st. Because they talked about something that is directly connected to the situation that you are dealing with. And you're like, oh my gosh, this person, he just spoke to me. I've never, ran into a motivational speaker like this. Wow, he touched me. It's like he touched my soul. He touched my core. That's what people say. Because this entire time, there was something that was blocking you. And now you understand that block. And now you know how to overcome that block. But it's not that motivational speakers aren't beneficial. Like I said, they're not going to be beneficial to everyone. They're not going to produce positive results for everyone. And for some, they're not going to affect anybody, because the degradation is too deep. It's too great. The darkness is too much to where they can't even grab on to anything that a motivational they can't be motivated. There's something blocking them that is allowing them to become motivated. And a lot of times motivational speakers are not able to identify what these things are. It takes someone who understands the soul and what is happening within the soul to help someone understand why they're going through what they're going through. Most people can explain what they're going through, but they can't explain why they're going through it. So they know what they're going through. They can say, wow, you understand me so much. How do you understand what I'm going through? That part to me is easy. It may not be easy for some or everybody, but that part comes fairly easy to me to identify what someone is going through. Most people can identify, not most people, but some people can identify what someone is going through. If you have some type of connection with the soul, with your own being, is what I'm saying. So that part's easy. But understanding why it's happening, that's a whole different ball game. That's a whole different ballgame. We can know what we're going through, but to understand why we're going through it, not everybody understands that. Not everybody understands why they were put up for adoption. Not everybody understands why they were given up. Not everybody understands why their parents were on drugs. Not everybody understands why they were cheated on. See, people don't understand. They just don't understand. And when you don't have understanding, you remain lost. There's a lack of certainty. But when you understand there's certainty as to why you are going what you're going through. Why am I going through this? And the thing is, they ask God. They're like, God, please help me understand why is this happening to me? Why are my children so out of control? Why is my husband not paying attention to me anymore? Why is my wife, being lazy, but when I met her, she was like so happy and excited about life? Like, why is this happening? I give all that I can. I work all kinds of hours. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's from the male perspective or the female perspective. People don't understand why. But I understand why. And you can understand why too if you understand the soul. If you understand man's laws. Because God's laws. God's laws are the reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, but not solely. The laws are only responding to the soul, your soul. So whatever darkness you're experiencing, it's coming from your own soul. It's not coming from the universe. The universe is only a mirror to what dwells within us. Hold on, I need some coffee. I didn't put any sugar in this. Oh. There we go. This man, look, that little wrapped Prius who was jumping and zigzagging and driving, passing everybody in the parking lot. Through the park, is behind me. And that's the one that got in front of me when I was driving through the park. Anyway, I don't know. So, God's laws. The soul is what's dictating the law. Is what is dictating the universe. I'm sorry. The soul is what is dictating the universe. How am I wording this, Zachary? Come on. The soul is what is telling the universe to deliver its outcome, its response. The soul is dictating the response. I should say this. The soul is dictating its own response from the universe. That's it. The soul is deciding what response you get. So you have the soul that is in a condition, and it has its own condition, whatever that condition is. Every soul is different. That's why everybody's experience is different. Even if you experience the same event, the response is always going to be different the response is always going to be different in order to reflect back to each individual soul its condition. Oh, I thought I saw a motorcycle, but I think it's someone's bumper. Uh-oh, someone lost the bumper. So hold on, I lost train of thought. Yeah, so the universe is the soul is the one that's dictating its own response from the universe. The universe is just responding to your soul. But the universe is not only delivering the mirror to your soul, it's also embedded within it lessons so that you can see. Like each response from the universe, or each experience from the universe, each law of attraction experience from the universe is so perfectly tailored. This is how on point the creator is. The universe delivers, like, understand this, 2 different people or 3 different people may have the same degradation within their soul, but each soul is different, meaning the contents within the soul are different. So you have 3 completely different souls who have a lesson that needs to be learned, and each lesson will be delivered differently because it's going to be received differently. It's going to be perceived differently. It's going to be perceived based on the contents of their soul. So the universe will fine-tune each experience so that it will click more readily for that person than any other. But each experience is going to be delivered to each soul so that the same opportunity of revelation is experienced. The purpose of the universe is to help the soul have a revelation, an aha moment, as Oprah says. An aha moment. This is what Oprah is saying when she says, I had an aha moment. I had a revelation. The universe delivered something and I saw it. I got it, I understood it, and I was like, I get it. I get it. And you hear her say it. I get it. Even when she's on her Super Soul Sunday thing, I don't watch it all the time, but sometimes I catch a clip here and there on YouTube. But she'll be sitting down with someone, and in that clip, she will say, I've never heard it that way, or I've never heard it put that way before, but I get it. I just had an aha moment. And sometimes she'll just say, she'll stop as a person's talking, and she'll just like pause, and she's like, I just had an aha moment. And that's her getting the revelation, because the universe delivered something to her. And this is interesting because Oprah, people see Oprah as being this, billionaire, blah, 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 blah. She's rich, she's powerful, she has influence, blah, 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 blah. And that's fine. But she's still like every other human being, still on her journey to learning, to bettering herself. That's why she had to fall the other day. She was saying, she was talking about balance. And she said balance, no, she said well-being or wellness isn't when everything is perfect or going right all the time. That's what she said. She said it doesn't have to be that in order for wellness to be present. But that's false. She said it can be a balance. But that's false. She was speaking a falsehood to millions of people because it was being recorded and going to be put out there for millions of people to see. She was talking to thousands of people, but because it was televised or being recorded, millions of people were going to see this. And in that moment when she was talking about balance, the universe knocked her ass down. Bloop, like that. And that message was for her and everybody else who was watching. So, but people were going to get it differently. People were going to receive that message differently. So someone had responded when I posted it. I had reposted it and put that description in there that, what she was saying was false, and the universe let her know, knocked her down took her off balance because she was not balanced. What she was saying was absolutely inaccurate. Now she blamed it on the shoes, and that's fine. She didn't get it. She didn't get her aha. Well, let me just say this. In that moment, she didn't admit she got an aha. And maybe she got an aha later, or maybe she'll get it 10 years from now when she hears something else and she thinks back to that moment when she fell. You see, the universe is very, very smart to where these laws, they know how to deliver a message, because that's all these laws are doing, are delivering messages from God. God is communicating with you through the law of attraction, through the law of cause and effects, through the laws of compensation, through every single law that has ever been created. That is how the Creator is communicating with you, delivering the messages. And you have to figure it out, because a smart soul, a smart person, has the ability to figure it out. But if you give people the answers, they won't figure it out. Now, this is interesting because when it comes to Christianity, and I was raised in a Christian home, so because my mother was both Jehovah's Witness and then she went to Baptist, so Christianity was presented to me in my early years. But one thing about Christianity is when there's some, like for instance, the Bible says, do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. Do this, don't do that. And so what Christians do is says, hey, look, this is the word of God. And this is what we're supposed to do. But most people don't understand why they're supposed to do it or why they're not supposed to do something. And this is a problem, because the Creator has created the soul to use a discernment. The Creator made the soul the pinnacle of its creation. The Bible is not God's creation. It's man's creation. It's man's interpretation of something. So, what has to happen is the soul has to become aware. The soul must become aware and be able to discern what is in the Bible. is what is written in the Bible loving or unloving? And I know some Christians, they say, hey, look, I'm dead set on this being the word of God, and I'm not going to hear anything different, and that's fine. I'm not saying you should change because I'm saying something that is contrary to your belief. That's not what I'm saying. But for those who are not dead set on the word, the Bible being the word of God, you can look and use discernment and know that an eye for an eye is something that's unloving. So if someone harms you, you don't harm them back. If someone hurts your kid, you don't hurt their kid. If someone hurts your family, you don't hurt their family. If someone lies on you, you don't lie on them. If someone causes you pain, you don't cause them pain. A discerning soul will be able to see that and say, hey, you know what? That's not loving. That's not loving, and I can't do that. Though it's written in the Bible, I cannot do that. Obey your mother and your father. Okay. You can respect them, but to obey them? No. Why would you obey a parent who is unloving? When you realize your parent is being unloving, why would you obey that parent? If your parent has taught you to do something, or if your parent has God, Zachary, if your parent has made you do something for years and you realize that what you've been doing is wrong or is unloving, what do? Do you continue to obey them and follow their instruction, or do you stop? See, normally I would honk, but see, I'm on my business, because the law of attraction for that man in the trunk is his law of attraction. You're not going to have me interfere with God's laws. God's laws is creating this law of attraction for these people. So, well, he looks a little better. He looks a little better, this man, because he was looking really down the other day. Maybe he was like detoxing, or I don't know. But he certainly looks better today. Yeah, with the parents. So with parents, if you recognize that you've been doing something unloving because this is the way they've taught you, and now you realize, hey, this is not loving, do you still obey your parents? No. Because it's called discernment. The Creator has given the soul, each soul, the power to discern. If a child is being closed down, shut down, and the parent is like, no, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, that's not for you, only wealthy people can do this, you're not allowed, you're not smart enough to do it, do you obey your parent and continue that train of thought? No. You disobey and you go on. You go on your own path, whatever is going to be uplifting and positive for you. Because you have to understand, a parent who says that their child isn't able to do something will shut down themselves. And they truly believe that it's not possible. So do you take on that? Do you obey your parent and take on that train of thought, that way of thinking, that way of viewing yourself, that way of feeling? No. So you don't obey your parent. You disobey them and you go for your dreams. You understand? So it's about, this is what I'm saying, you can if you want to, but if you love yourself, you would use discernment. You would find out, what does God have to say about this? Not the Bible, but what does God have to say about it? Because that's going to be the most important thing for you. Because that is going to set you free. God's truth, the truth will set you free. Not your truth, not man's truth, not man's laws, but God's laws, God's truth will set you free. It will remove you from the shackles of others. It will remove you from the shackles that you have placed upon yourself. It will. I need chapstick, but I don't know where my bag. Where's my bag? No, hold on a second, because I can't even talk right. My lips are all dry, not wanting to stretch. I got a small mouth anyway. I got a small big mouth. A small big mouth. Mm-hmm. All right, so honky honk. That feels a lot better. So it will remove the shackles that you place upon yourself, that others place upon you. The truth will set you free. Truth is a beautiful thing. Oh my gosh, people, I can't tell you how much I love God's truth. Because when I started learning about God's truth, what is absolute truth, my life became so free. My life became so free. It was just like, I'm hungry. I'm so hungry right now. I gotta get something to eat. So let me. All right. Actually, I'm gonna pause this. Okay, I'm back. It's so funny. Every time I come into this place, you're like, same thing? I'm a regular here. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. You know how old people, they've been going to a certain place for years and they don't even have to say what they want. You want the same thing? Yes, I want the same thing. So, just God's truth is something that has allowed me to live a life without, I don't want to say without uncertainty, because there's certain things that I am uncertain about still. But I can tell you, being that I have the foundation that I have of God's truth, because I only know a small part of God's truth. I only know a small part of God's laws and how everything works. But the great thing about it is, when I have a question, when a question is posed to me, by me, it's easily answered. That's the amazing thing, is you don't have to do research. You already know what the answer is when you ask yourself the question. That's what the foundation of God's truth awards you. When you have a relationship situation and you don't know what to do, all you have to do is recall God's laws of love, of truth, and you'll know exactly what to do. You'll know the right thing to do. Not based on your emotions, not based on your feelings, not based on anyone else's emotions or anyone else's feelings. You just know, and it is such a good feeling to know what to do, because you're not stuck and you're able to continue moving in a forward and upward motion. I had to do that with my soulmate, and if I would have let my feelings dictate what I'm supposed to do, I would be so lost and stuck. But because I know God's laws and I know what's best for me, and I know what's best for the other person, because that's the thing about God's laws. When you follow it, it benefits you and everybody else around you. When you use man's laws, someone's going to get screwed. Someone's going to get screwed. Maybe you. Well, actually, both people are going to be screwed. But both people are going to get screwed. If you use man laws, both people are going to get screwed. Because the decision has to come from a loving place. It has to come from a place of humility. It has to come from a place of understanding. It has to come from a place of compassion. All of this has to come at the same time. This is what God's laws do. This is how God's laws operate. It interacts with the soul. It's not just about action. It's about intent. It's about the motive behind it, the feeling behind it. Okay, first of all, this is weird. So this little cage setup, there's like tables to sit, but like it's open on the left, but it's not open over there. And that is so scary. Like, if you're in there and someone wants to come and mess with you, you're stuck. You're stuck. You might as well just sit there and get messed with, because there's no getting out of that one. Anyway, but yeah, God's laws, God's truth, all of it allows love to be present. God's laws, God's truth allow love to be present. Follow God's laws, follow God's truth, you'll have love. You are loving. You have love within you when you hold truth. Some people believe, oh, you have to feel nice and feel kind in order to have love. No. Holding truth is love. Because holding truth allows love to be present. This is the great thing about it. This is why my life has improved, because when I started learning truth, I started seeing things from a different perspective. And since I was seeing things from a different perspective, I was able to not have as much judgment. Judgment wasn't present. I was able to have compassion because I had understanding. And I was humble enough to allow all of this to happen. That's where humility comes in. It allows all these things. Humility allows you to have understanding. Humility allows you to have compassion. It allows all of these different things, which is what love is. All of these different. That's why it's so great to have it. If you can have it, then have it. And the thing is, you can have it. It's just a choice of not wanting it, because you want something else, and that's fine too. At some point, you'll want it, because the soul, can only be in that state for so long before it decides, hey, I want something different. The same thing happens on the planet. The same thing happens in the hells in the spirit world. People are in a dark place, and that's a lot of these spirits that come to AJ and Mary for assistance is because they're tired. Some, like the one guy, he was in the spirit world for 30 years before he decided, or 32 years before he decided, I need help. But at some point, he reached a threshold where he had to say to himself, I need help. And that feeling of help, that call out for help, is what God responded to and sent people to help him. That's what you're drawn. And the spirit world works a little differently, but yet it doesn't work differently. Like, if you need help, somehow you're drawn to the right people on earth who can help you. That's how it works. At some point, you're drawn to someone, and you wonder, and some people wonder, like, I don't know how I ran into you. Well, I can tell you how they ran into, or how you ran into them. It wasn't by chance. You had a desire. The universe moved people around so that you would interact, you would collide, you would cross each other's path, because that crossing of paths needed to happen. Because you needed help. And this is the person who was able to deliver it. God knows where every person is on this planet. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. So, like I was saying, God knows where every single person is on this planet. And God moves all people around. All people around. This is, through guides and guardians. Suggestion. God uses his guides, the guides that you have, to drop thoughts in you in order to get you to go somewhere. Get you to go here, get you to go there. Be at this place at this time, so that you are in the perfect place for your purpose. Whether it's purpose to teach or purpose to learn, God makes sure that you are in the right place at the right time all the time. This is when you think about it, it's, and you have free will, because when and it's not that God is controlling you, there's suggestions made. That's what a thought being dropped in your mind is, a suggestion. How many times have you had a thought to do something or to go somewhere, and you're like, oh, I'm lazy, I don't want to go, I'm tired, I don't want to get up and go anywhere. And you missed out on something. Because, see, the Creator was going to put you in the place that you needed to be, so that you got what you needed, or someone else got what they needed. And understand, if someone gets what they need, you get what you need. Because God does not make suggestions that are one-sided. At all. You get what you need, the other person gets what they need, all from God's suggestion. They see where you're at. God sees all things, meaning God sees where you're at. God sees where you need to be. And God sees where that opportunity is, and drops a thought, or has someone drops a thought into you, so that you have this idea of being in a certain place at a certain time, or just at a certain place, But you can, at any time, through your free will, can deny that. Can say, you know what, I'm not going. Something said go, but something said I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. If I don't want to go, I don't want to go. That's the way that it is. So, it's the same thing about going somewhere. A thought could be dropped in your mind to not go somewhere, but you can press the issue and say, I want to go. I want to use my free will, even though something telling me not to go. I don't know why, but I'm going to go anyway. And then something bad happens, and then you're wondering why you're sitting there stuck like Chuck. God sees it all. I'm hearing squeaking. Every time I hear squeak, I think it's my car, but it's actually somebody else's car. So, oh, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Let me sit right here on these sensors so I get the green light. Yeah, so, gosh, that's so amazing, is it not? I'm amazed by it. I'm happy that it's in place, because this is where faith comes in, people. When you know the laws, when you know what's happening, when you know why something is happening, oh my gosh, you have faith in the creator and the system. And then, you know, it's at that point, you know that you're never alone, and you're not being failed. You're being supported at all times. You're never abandoned. Like, this is the truth. But you can't have that truth unless you hold previous truths that support that truth. So how can you have, this is the thing, how can you have faith in the creator that is supporting you if you don't know how that is happening? Again, it goes to understanding. This is why it's very difficult for atheists and agnostics to believe in, not agnostics, but atheists to believe in a God, because they don't see the supporting evidence of that God. There's nothing present or happening that is present for them to determine that there's a God present. Same thing with having an absent father. Let's say there is a father, like I was just watching this movie. What was this movie called? God, it had that guy from The Ring in it. The Modo or Frodo? Is it Frodo? No, Frodo? I don't know. I'm not into those movies like that, so I don't know the characters' names. But anyway, this is the one with the dark hair and the blue eyes. I don't know his name. But anyway, he was in this movie, and it was really... Oh, Come to Daddy. That's the name of it. Come to Daddy. Come to Daddy. It was the strangest movie. I was like... I didn't know what it was, Come to Daddy. When I read the synopsis thing, it was like... Oh, it was about a journey with his father and something going on. I was like, okay, whatever. So I put it on, and I was like, what is going on here? What is going on? This movie was so strange. But my point is, I don't know what my point is, because I forgot why I even brought that movie up. Why did I bring that movie up? Oh, you support it. Oh, support it. So that's what it was. So the father was not in this boy's life as he was growing up. But the boy always thought that his father was absent. He thought that his father was not around. So, come to find out, he went to go visit his father. There was a letter that the father wrote that he wanted to get to know him, blah, 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 blah. And all this bullshit happened. This is why it was a crazy movie, because all the stuff in between all of that, it was just strange. But if you have a chance to watch it, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not bad, but it's just weird. It's strange. I'm going to go this way. So come to find out, the father, the reason why the boy grew up in Beverly Hills is because the father was paying for it the entire time. But the father was absent. And so he felt like his father didn't care. His father didn't love him. But he didn't understand what the father was doing. Now, the reason why the father wasn't present, that's a whole other story. But he was supporting his kid in so many different ways, but the kid did not know. The only difference between that movie and God is always with you emotionally if you allow it. If you want the connection is there. But you're always being supported. Even though you don't see a physical God or you don't understand what that means, you're always still supported. So even though this boy did not know his father was present, he was always supported by his father. He had all the things to support him to have a positive life. The only thing is the boy didn't understand that his father was present, nor did he understand why he wasn't present. So this is why it's like so important to understand these things, because when you have understanding, you're not as affected. You're not as bothered. It doesn't happen to you in a negative way. You understand things from the rightful perspective. Okay, I do have a dad out there, like I'm talking about the movie now. I do have a dad out there. He is supporting me. I am being supported. His presence is here, but he's not here physically. That's the benefit of knowing and understanding, because that what you're experiencing is proof. So, oh my. So that's what I wanted to say. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'll leave it at that, and because this video is entirely too long already. So yeah, that's it. So have a great Thursday. Have a wonderful Thursday, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye now.